In 2011, Afghanistan was considered the most dangerous country in the world for women, a major contributor to the reason that Afghanistan ranks extremely low on the Human Development Index. Because of factors such as strict tribal codes and cultural practices, women in most areas are virtually forbidden to leave the house, limiting their access to political, economic, and social activity. The National Solidarity Program, or NSP, funded by the World Bank, was imposed by the Afghanistan government for rural development by aiding in an improvement of infrastructure and local government. Villages were mandated to have councils with female representation that were given block grants to support the projects the council voted to implement. With every village resident voting that was over 18, the election process ended with 500 villages, or 10 districts, having new gender-balanced councils with block grants of $200 per household. This is where our experiment begins. The question the researchers wanted to answer is would attitudes towards women in a society marked by female oppression change if women were given positions of power? And if they did change, how did they? The researchers had 4 hypotheses. Only the dependent variable changes in each hypothesis, and the relationships stated are positive. The hypothesis is that a mandatory female participation in local councils that are aimed towards rural development would increase, number 1, acceptance of women involvement in local government, number 2, female socialization and engagement in economic activity, number 3, women's participation in decision-making within the household, and number 4, a positive perception of women's status in society as a whole. The districts involved in this experiment had diverse populations that translated well into a representative sample of Afghanistan. But the southern region of Afghanistan had to be excluded for safety reasons, probably weakening external validity. The researchers used the National Risk and Vulnerability Assessment to have a randomly selected stratified sample of the population that was balanced statistically between treatment and control groups. The assignment of treatment and control groups happened in 3 main stages. First was the village clustering, when villages were clustered together, resulting in 107 villages assigned to 41 village clusters. Then, villages were matched in pairs that deemed to be similar in each district. And finally, they assigned treatment at random of treatment and control groups. To test the effects of NSP, a baseline and follow-up survey were conducted 2 years apart. The follow-up survey was very similar to the baseline survey, but samples varied. While testing the measures relevant to each hypothesis, the researchers relied more on the comparison of treatment and control groups rather than the differences in treatment groups from the baseline to follow-up survey. They had to do this due to the changes in sampling, which could have weakened internal validity. The dependent variables were measured through a type of linear least squares method called the OLS model, and for variables with multiple measures, they used a summary index. Standard errors were accounted for at the village cluster level. The data collected shows a significant increase of men and women in the treatment group responding positively to women playing a role in local government, affirming hypothesis 1. There was also an increase of men and women who thought women should play a role in selecting the village headman, a position women currently could not vote on. As for hypothesis 2, there was no significant increase of women socializing, although it is noted the type of socializing they did get to do dramatically changed as they were given the opportunity to express views on local government. Women respondents in treatment groups were 50% more likely to say they had someone with whom they could speak about village issues with candidly. Women were also more likely to leave the house without a chaperone and engage in economic activity in treatment groups than control groups. However, there was no data supporting hypothesis 3 or 4. Women's roles in the house and in society in general stayed the same throughout the time of this experiment. Women and men still firmly believed in their traditional cultural and religious practices, such as women being forbidden to work for the government or to see male doctors. While women gained some legitimacy as actors in the local community, at the individual and societal level, views on women were virtually unchanged. Nevertheless, this field experiment gives hope to countries with female oppression that some positive change can occur at local levels when women are given roles of power. The National Solidarity Program has been perceived as a developmental aid program that took a small step in the right direction towards human development.